The time of cleansing draws nigh. When I walk the earth again, the faithful among you shall receive your reward, to be set above all other mortals forever. As for the rest, the weak shall be winnowed, the timid shall be cast down, the mighty shall tremble at my feet and pray for pardon.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Jeremy and welcome back to the Elder Scrolls. The lands of Tamriel are filled with many races, cultures and religions, some of its many regions having some more basic environments like Cyrodiil, while others are very alien in nature, like the Ashland of Morrowind. But it's not within this land that you'll find the topic of today's video. Instead, we must focus our attention outside the realm of mortals, and look to the realms of Oblivion. In this case, the realm of destruction, for in this video we're going to investigate the lore surrounding Mehrunes Dagon, otherwise known as the Prince of Ambition and the Lord of Change. Dagon is one of the Daedric princes, and is perhaps one of the most well-known of them, that is, after the events surrounding the Oblivion crisis during the Third Era. His sphere encompasses things like destruction, change and revolution. Known for being associated with violent upheaval, he's one of the most prominent characters in the Elder Scrolls, and has some of the most popular artifacts linked to him. I'd even go so far as to say that he's one of my favourite Daedric princes. He simply has so many interesting things to discuss and to theorise about. In this video we'll find out about his origins, what exactly his sphere means to the rest of Tamriel, we'll cover his realm of Oblivion, the Deadlands, and what exactly his goals are in the long run. Before we get started, however, I'd like to remind you to consider liking the video if you enjoy it. Leave a comment if you have any questions, and subscribe to join the community and find out more about everything Elder Scrolls related. The origins of Mehrunes Dagon can be a bit confusing, so just bear with me here for this first part. Lig. It is the adjacent plane. It is said to be a mirror image of Tamriel and Anetshirmer. Some believe it to be a mix of the current Kalpa, so the current cycle, and the last. The creation of the realm, along with the existence of the realm itself, is not really known. However, history describes of an event of Tamriel folding up in time and space, causing it to be imprinted on the other side of the world. Imagine a sheet of paper folding in on itself, the wet ink from one side pressing into the other, leaving a mirrored imprint. Therefore, Lig appears as a backwards version of Tamriel, akin to that of an ink blot or a coffee stain. Lig, the Mundex terrene, was the domain of the upstart who vanishes, aka Lorkhan. It was here that the tyrannical Dread Kings, Molag Bal chief among them, ruled from the 19 and 9 and 9 seas, waging endless wars against each other's slave oceans. The Magnagi, the Star Orphans, looked down upon the Grey Maybe, upon Lig, and were disgusted with the pain and suffering that they witnessed. They could not bear to see it continue, and thus they wanted a cure, a way to cleanse the Mundus of its contamination. And so, in secret, the Star Orphans descended from the skies into the bowels of Lig, where they communed to discover a solution. It was here, in secret, that the Magnagi would create Mehrunes Dagon. Dagon was created to be a prince of good, and was imbued with Oblivion's most precious asset of all, hope. If you want to learn anything else about the Magnagi, or the god they followed into Aetherius, I've left a link in the description to one of my videos where I cover it. It was with this asset of hope that Dagon begun his revolution. He threw down Lig and cracked his face. He let the lowly slaves know free will from their dread kings, stirring and riling them to violence against their masters. This would be his Red Legion. They overthrew the tyrant dregs and toppled the towers of Kim El Garjig, destroyed the great cities, and desecrated the temples of the upstart. Hope spread like a brush fire, the continent destroyed, and the world now set free. The sphere that Mehrunes Dagon governs encompasses destruction, ambition, change, energy, and revolution. If you were to say that Dagon is the epitome of destruction, you would not be wrong. At face value, he is simply a figure of darkness and destruction, and may at times appear as the generic evil demon lord who's going to ruin your day. However, he is really much more than that. I would argue that his most important feature is that of change, which is perhaps just as, if not more prominent in his ideology than destruction. The Magna Gi may have created him in the first place to destroy Lig and the Mundus, but really, at its root, they made him with the sole purpose of change. Out with the old, in with the new. This makes sense, as he was created with the asset of hope, which is the desire to want something to happen, to want something new or different to replace what is now there currently. Dagon highly supports rebellion, and while he may be happy with any kind of change taking place, it is apparent that the broader the effects of the change, the greater it is for him. To see a slave strike down his master in rebellion is a satisfying tremor in the world, but to watch an empire crumble beneath the feet of its own people, that is something he can truly appreciate. Dagon takes great pleasure in laying the foundation of a revolt. If you're the lowest class within a society, then he wants you to turn against the upper class, to overthrow them and to take their place. He is the greatest advocate of the underdog. He always wants them to overcome and defeat their overlords. And do not view him as only either good or bad. He does not care if your leaders are morally right or not. He wants them overthrown and their society upturned. As long as you are on the unlikely side of a conflict, he will support you, be it good or bad. For this reason, Mehrunes would be the Daedric that you worship to begin your revolution, the first prince you turn to gain power. He is your greatest ally when you are at your lowest, but your greatest enemy at the height of your power. Mehrunes, being changed, is also heavily associated with natural disasters, such as fires, earthquakes, floods, and thunderstorms, hence the title, the Lord of Fire and Flood. Imagine an endless ocean of searing molten lava stretching to the horizon, its fiery waves crashing against desolate island with jagged black mountains pointing into the burning blood-red sky. The charred black earth is scarred by deep cracks from which lava and poisonous gas spew into the air. The air is thick with the smell of sulfur, and you feel the ground rumble beneath you. These are the Deadlands, the plain of oblivion belonging to the Flame Father. The Deadlands are a dark and desolate landscape, covered in an ocean of lava, scattered with scorched volcanic islands and ruined structures. Other regions are covered in craggy, serrated rocks, with sulfuric pools throughout. Fierce winds howl through the landscape, while constant lightning storms are carried right through. Several kinds of lesser Daedra roam the landscape freely. Daedroth, Clanfears, Scamps, and Atronachs are all common sight, but it is the Dremora that dominate the hierarchy, a warlike race of Daedra who are known to serve the Daedric lords. They are capable and highly intelligent and should be avoided at all costs. There are many great structures throughout the realm, with grand monoliths, war gates, bridges, and towers, many of which are ruined or no longer usable, having been destroyed as the land changes beneath them, or by other means unknown to us. These buildings are distinctly Daedric in style, with large ornamental spikes protruding outwards. The walls and doors are inscribed with orange-red blazing Daedric runes, and bloated, rotting corpses cling to the walls or hang from the ceiling, swaying like grotesque chandeliers, left to spoil and moulder in silent decay. Hollow towers are used to store and torture prisoners, who are then executed with the great corpse mashers. Not all the areas in the region contain such dominant structures. Wooden bridges and torches are used in place of stone. For why put so much effort into stone-carved structures with sophisticated designs if they're going to be torn down anyway and rebuilt all over in the same continuous cycle? It then becomes clear with this plane of oblivion how well it encapsulates his sphere. Buildings are in ruin and lava, an ever-destructive force flooding the landscape. Lava, an ideal substance to represent Lord Dagon, having a great amount of destructive potential and an equal amount of creative. Thus, his realm is undergoing constant change, with land sinking beneath the lava, simultaneously to the land that it is creating. In a similar fashion, the flora there undergo a comparable cycle, many of these plants appearing as lifeless, dead husks. However, flourish in a similar manner of destruction and renewal. The ember oak feeds on lightning strikes. The deadlands pine and the end times ash tree must be burned to renew its life cycle. The bloodgrass and harada roots grow in charred soil. Despite the volcanic and destructive nature of the realm, somehow life finds a way. It was from this realm that Dagon would launch a wide-scale invasion into Tamriel, in an event that would become known as the Oblivion Crisis. In order to carry out his plan, Mehrunes would need an agent to enact his plan and prepare Tamriel for his oncoming invasion. For thousands of years, since the First Era, the Emperors of Tamriel have maintained a covenant with Akatosh. So long as the Emperors have dragon blood running in their veins and bear the Amulet of Kings, the eternal dragon fires will remain lit, and Akatosh would endeavour to seal tight the gates of Oblivion and deny the armies of Daedra from entering the mortal realm. And so, Dagon chose an individual, going by the name of Mankar Cameron, to carry out his plan. He gave Cameron his book, the Mysterium Xerxes, a Daedric artifact written by Mehrunes Dagon himself. Mankar Cameron would become obsessed with this book, poring over the writings and taking away many metaphysical implications from it. Using the knowledge, he wrote down his findings in a series of books, the commentaries on the Mysterium Xerxes. The commentaries would reveal Mankar Cameron's belief that the 9 divines were all traitors to Lorkhan.
And Dawn's beauty, the princedom of Lorkhan, misnamed Tamriel by deluded mortals. Yes, you understand now. Tamriel is just one more Daedric realm of oblivion, long since lost to its prince when he was betrayed by those that served him. Lord Dagon cannot invade Tamriel, his birthright. He comes to liberate the occupied lands. Ask yourself, how is it that mighty gods die, yet the Daedra stand incorruptible? How is it that the Daedra forthrightly proclaim themselves to man, while the gods cower behind statues and the faithless words of traitor priests? It is simple. They are not gods at all.
Using these books, he was able to gather a following of worshippers and establish the Mythic Dawn, a secret cult dedicated to the Prince of Destruction. With the Mythic Dawn, he carried out an assassination plot against Uriel Septim VII and all his known heirs, with no Dragonborn Emperors wearing the Amulet of Kings and the Dragonfires extinguished. The barriers between Nirn and Oblivion were weakened. Oblivion gates to the Deadlands began opening across all corners of Tamriel, with each gate weakening the barriers more and more. Devastation was experienced across all provinces of Tamriel, that is, with the exception of Blackmarsh. The Hist was somehow able to anticipate the Oblivion crisis, and in the period leading up to the invasion, they recalled much of the Argonian population to their homeland, where they entered the Hist trees and were somehow greatly strengthened physically, becoming almost like super soldiers. With these drugged up lizards, they were able to fight back against the invasion, defending their home so well that they were able to counter-invade the Oblivion gates, forcing the Daedra to close them in the province. Yes, you heard that right. While all other provinces and armies failed to even defend their homes, the Argonians were able to do both that and launch their own successful invasion into Oblivion. If that doesn't make you feel like playing an Argonian, I don't know what will. The climax of the invasion was in the Imperial City, at the Temple District. It was here, after dozens of Oblivion gates had opened up around the city, that Mehrunes Dagon himself entered the realm. At this moment, the walls between Oblivion and Nirn had crumbled, the veil torn, and the dragonfires rendered useless in stopping the invasion. There was pretty much nothing that could have been done to stop the invasion at this point. It was during this time, when all hope had but disappeared, that Martin Septim, the bastard son of Uriel Septim, who had the blood of Akatosh in his veins, would make history. Martin took the Amulet of Kings, entering into the Temple of the One. It was here that he took the amulet in hand and shattered it. Upon doing so, with royalty, transformed into golden flames and divine might, into a great and magnificent dragon. He had transformed himself into an avatar of Akatosh, and with this divine form, destroyed Mehrunes Dagon, banishing him back to his plane of oblivion, ending the crisis. Upon his victory, he turned to stone in the center of the now ruined temple. The divine victory cost Martin his life, but his sacrifice sealed the gates of oblivion forever. The Daedric could never again threaten the mortal realm. The death of Martin Septim marked the end of the Septim dynasty, as well as the end of the Third Era, leaving the start of the Fourth with Tamriel ruined and the Empire crippled. What exactly Dagon's goal was in invading Tamriel is hard to say. Obviously he was there to change it, but his actual end goals, what would he have done if he was successful? Let's say his plan wasn't stopped. Upon ending the Septim Empire and wrecking the world, what would he have done then? At that point, he would be the only ruler, which would contradict his own beliefs. It is in his nature to rebel, to tear down empires and leaders. It is his nature to change. So how would he go about this if he won? Would he switch sides again and encourage a new minority to uproot his very own empire? It's hard to know. Perhaps his goal really was to destroy the Mundus, as the Magna are said to have created him for that purpose. Or perhaps, upon destroying Lig and freeing its people, he then turned his focus upwards, to the Magna and the other spirits who overlooked the Mundus. Seeing this is itself a representation of the dichotomy, with the powerful gods above and the weaker mortals below, he recognized this and began his own revolution, a revolution against the gods. As Mankar said, his plan is to unmake the world. To destroy the Mundus would be so to reset it, and in doing so would level the playing field with all beings now on equal terms, return to their original forms as spirits. Mankar Cameron is also noted to have said that Tamriel was Dagon's birthright, and that his invasion was to claim what is rightfully his. He might just simply want to expand his own plane of oblivion, the Deadlands, by merging it and Tamriel together. You could even argue that Dagon was successful in his invasion. Now what I mean by this is that even though he was stopped and his invasion a failure, when you think about it, he ended the Septim Empire, allowing many ambitious people and groups to take advantage of the weakened state of Tamriel and gain power, like the Thalmor or Ulfric Stormcloak for example. Dagon ended the Third Era, and ultimately, Tamriel as a whole was changed. However, in saying all of this, you cannot forget that there are many other populations in Tamriel, who have their own depictions and understandings of Mehrunes Dagon. In the world of the Elder Scrolls, nothing is certain. Every truth is open to interpretation, and even the most unlikely idea can be presented as fact. To understand what I'm getting at, there is a deranged group of Argonians in Blackmarsh, the Sulzan tribe, who consider Mehrunes Dagon the true egg child of Sithis. They embrace only the darkest and cruelest traditional Argonian beliefs, all the while scorning the rest as weakness. This group is not only vicious in its way, but also xenophobic, such that they sacrifice outsiders and even other Argonians alike, all in the hopes of one day summoning Mehrunes Dagon to bring blood and destruction across Blackmarsh, and eventually the world. They're unique among Argonians, as the society at large is not known to venerate the Daedric powers. I can't help but wonder if they're still around during the Oblivion Crisis. Did they regret their worship of him once their long-awaited wish was finally fulfilled? In Elsewhere, Dagon is named Mehrunes, and is often depicted as a destructive kitten, funnily enough. Actually, it's a very fitting representation of him, as what's more destructive than a kitten? In the Khajiit pantheon, he's said to be born of Fadomai's second litter, and that he quickly turned destructive and wild. Anur, his father, exiled him, and Mehrunes chose to venture into the Great Darkness. It was within this darkness that he is said to have been tortured by the demon king Molag, until the creation of the world. He was eventually freed by Molag's wife, who took advantage of Mehrunes' destructive tendencies to assault the lunar lattice. Dalek Bray, a great Khajiit warlord of the First Era, was a devout worshipper of the Firecat Mehrunes, and led conquests spanning into Cyrodiil and Valenwood. Anaquina's martial tradition supposedly began with Dalek Bray's reign, and despite his devotion to Mehrunes, he is remembered for his effort to preserve Elsewhere's ancient history. There are so many different angles and aspects of Mehrunes Dagon that to strictly narrow it down to one interpretation would be fruitless. There is so much depth in his character, to ever truly understand what he believes or wants is futile. One story speaks of a cultist asking Dagon why he destroyed his own capital in the Deadlands. His answer: "Because I am destruction, and it is what I must do." It's moments like these that make it hard to distinguish whether his actions are driven by purpose, or if they are simply driven by a desire to destroy. He himself is a natural disaster, unpredictable and capable of destruction beyond measure. And that, guys, brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching and joining me on this deep dive into the realm of Mehrunes Dagon. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and subscribe as we learn more about the world of the Elder Scrolls. And lastly, don't forget, some men just want to watch the world burn.